Welcome to Cubbies. We create fun-loving stuffed animals that can be embroidered directly onto the tummy. We have a single focus to make unique, personalised toys for children and nothing else. I started Cubbies in 2010 from my apartment in Toronto and named it after my dog called Cubby. Here he is with one of our first designs. I had one vision in mind and that's still true today. Putting smiles on kids' faces. Cubbies are available globally in over 25 countries. They are suitable for all ages and can be designed for any occasion. You can personalise your Cubby with just a single name or design your own custom message. Think of a birthday, Christmas, wedding, heartwarming message, you name it. We're continuously updating our current range of stuffed animals. Our design department is never quiet. All Cubbies have their own individual name and we try to be as fun and quirky as possible. If it makes us laugh, we know we're on the right path. Some of our Cubbies have been named by our fans through Facebook competitions, so keep an eye out for your chance to name the next new Cubby. Our mission is to inject more magic into toys by finding new ways to spark children's imagination all over the world.
Cubbies are taking over!
Now that we know how Cubbies came to life, are you wondering what my obsession is with them? I can't help but love them. Even though I'm an adult, I love their cuddly qualities, not to mention their fun color schemes. They're so easy to market for the holidays as well as all of life's events mentioned by Lee in the last segment. Now for a few of my own personal favorites about this line. When most stuffed animals receive a ton of love, they bust at their seams, making it hard to keep them around and looking their best. Worry no more. Tell your customers how they can unzip and unstuff them. Mention quick washing and drying as well as easy mending. And another really cool thing is to keep in mind that you don't have to keep the stuffing pods in them. You can take them out and stuff the Cubby with anything you'd like, say pajamas to go to Grandma and Grandpa's this weekend. And last but not least, I love that Cubbies are safe for all ages. They don't have buttons that can come off and are great for adults too. Now that we've learned all about Cubbies and what they are, let's talk a little bit more in detail about how to decorate them. Before we get started, you'll need to gather your supplies. You'll need 2 layers of tearaway backing. I prefer 2 ounce for the Cubby projects. And a hoop. I like my 5.85 inch plastic hoop. I'll talk about more as far as why I use a plastic hoop later. But mainly, go for a hoop that's as big as you can get in the Cubby and hoop well. Next, you'll need a design that fits inside of your hoop that you're using and possibly water-soluble topping. We'll determine this later as far as if you need it or not. And then you'll have to choose a Cubby to decorate. I know this is so hard, just one, right? But start with one, and then as your confidence grows, just decorate them all. And of course, you'll need a machine to embroider the design, as well as quality thread, bobbin, and usual tools that you would generally use for embroidery. And of course, if you don't have these supplies, we sell everything here except for the hoop. So pop over to our website if you're looking for supplies. Hooping these little guys isn't too tough of a job. The first step is to unzip the little pouch that exposes their little packing pod. You set that aside and then go ahead and take out the one for the head too. That just helps really get this flattened out. I like to use my round hoop because it gives me the largest area on my design available. So go ahead and undo that screw so it has quite a bit of give. Being sure that my tension screw is to the bottom here, I kind of line it up with the white part of the tummy and kind of get it centered and pull it kind of like that, and I get the little arms and legs behind here like so. And then I actually hoop it upside down, so I'm going to make sure that this part of my hoop is towards the opening, and I'm going to go ahead and place this on here, eyeballing it kind of straight. Start at that part where the tension screw is because that helps the hoop open nicely. And then push it into place. And then you can kind of see, did I get it straight? Did I get it centered? And push that hoop up on there good. And you want to make sure that it's tight but not over tight. If it's over tight, it could come apart on you during the sew out. You want to make sure that it's fairly smooth and tight. And I float my backing in rather than having it on there because it definitely makes hooping a little more difficult. If you'd prefer to use your Mighty Hoops on these little guys, same thing. You're going to take the stuffings out, and the 5.5 ring will fit. It is very, very snug, and it's hard to get it straight, but you can do it. Put this tab into the head, work it straight as you can, and kind of bring this stretched up and over. I choose to float the backing in every time because it's just easier than trying to get it to cooperate with the hoop. The hoop is enough to try to work with. And then you can kind of start to move it so that it's centered in there. This is where it's a little difficult with that 5.5 and some of the smaller cubbies, but same thing, I'm going to kind of gather so that it is a little tight, and then I'm going to make sure that my hoop is oriented so that it's towards the opening. And I'm going to use these dots as a reference, and you can see we're not straight, so pop it apart and try to reposition it. This is the struggle with the square hoops. It's hard to get them straight and centered.
A trick I liked a lot when I was first getting started out with Cubbies was to use a design that doesn't need to be straight, like a sharp angle, for instance. Then if I struggled to get it hooped straight, it didn't matter. Carry on.
You can see we've got a little pucker here, so depending on how close to that area we're getting, our tension isn't quite the same there. We may end up with thread breaks, so we've got to be careful in what we expect this to work. We may want to just make sure that our design stays kind of up here. That's kind of out of the hoop limit, so it may not be a problem. Now there is the 4.25 hoop. It is smaller, so it's going to be easier to get in here and get straight and centered. However, it also is going to limit your design size ability. For something like a full belly design where you want it to be rounded, this is going to really leave you a lot of white space. So that's the trade-off. It's a lot easier to work with. For something like a name or a monogram, this is going to work fine. But you can see it was very easy to get straight and centered this time. You can always set it up. I'm using this as a guide to get it centered on there. Contrary to my don't pull and tug rule on hooping things, I am going to just tug on this enough to get that fabric to be laying in its natural state so we don't have that ripple there.
Generally, I love my Mighty Hoops, and if you don't have them, I bet you're a little jealous. Not all machines are compatible, but most are. And yes, I do sell Mighty Hoops. So if you're in the market, give me a call or send me a text or email.
When we float the backing in, I'm going to choose a backing that you would choose based on the project. And for this, I'm going to do tearaway. You could do cutaway. You could do 2 layers of tearaway. If you use 2 layers of tearaway, turn 1/4 turn so that you have grain going both directions. And then we're just going to go ahead and slide that in. Making sure that it's all the way across and as smooth as possible.
Choosing the right design is certain to help you with decorating your cubby. It's all about size and anatomy. Be sure not to resize your designs that you've purchased, and if you do, don't scale it more than 20% up or down and expect it to work well. Try to get designs that are the right size to begin with. Those that have underlay stitches may not need water-soluble topping. What a bonus! You don't want the fuzzy tummy making its way through the beautiful design, and you can avoid extra cleanup time. I've stitched everything from fill, satin, to running stitches, as well as applique on the cubbies, and been pleased with the outcome. Make sure you turn your design upside down because the bottom of the cubby goes on first, so that is the top. Save designs in this orientation if you need to, so that they are always in the right position and you don't forget and end up stitching it upside down.
And to get this little guy on here, I'm just going to kind of work the legs out to the sides.
I love my EMT 16 by Melco for decorating cubbies. It has a small lower arm which allows me to get the maximum design size and a little easier to load odd items onto the machine. After I did a few cubbies, it got even easier.
And then make sure to come under and pull that down. And be sure that your backing stayed in place and you're ready to stitch.
Use all the usual settings for your machine. On my Melco machine, I'll be sewing at a normal tension and 1,000 stitches per minute. Trace your design and be sure everything is out of its own way. You certainly don't want to sew the little guy shut. When in doubt, pull your water solvy out if you're not sure your design was created to cover well without it. You can float it in and hold it down at the beginning with a tool. Not your finger though, I've heard too many horror stories. Or you can tape it in place, leaving a little give to be sure it stays in place during the entire sew out. Now you're ready to begin sewing your design. Watching these little guys and gals being decorated is quite fun, but it can also look like a violent experience when being put onto the machine, then shaken all about at fast speeds. But they're so cute when they're done. I'm quite picky about the cleanup process, probably too much so. Tame your inner perfectionist if you're like me, but do what makes your heart happy. It's your product and reputation on the line. Peeling what you can of the water solvy is easier while it's still in the hoop with that tension on it. I use my fingers or a tweezers to pull off what I can. Be gentle while taking the hoop ring out. Sometimes it gets stuck on the backing since it wasn't involved with the hooping process. Once the hoop has been removed, continue cleaning it up. Snip the tails of the threads if you like. Keep in mind they'll be on the inside. Gently tear the backing away one layer at a time. I like to pull it towards the design while holding closely on or next to the design to avoid distortion. I fold and move the fabric around while peeling away any leftover backing and topping. The designs created at Trouble Me Not Embroidery that are specifically for decorating cubbies are made in a way that do not require water solvy to be used. This cuts down tremendously on cleanup time. If some of the solvy doesn't come off when you tear it away, it can be dabbed at with a wet rag. It's important to remove all of it. It is water soluble after all, and kids like to chew on everything with their wet little mouths. I hope this Threaducation video has helped build your confidence and inspired you to take on this super cute product line. There are so many fun styles of cubbies to choose from, and once you get the hang of wrestling them into the hoop, they're such a joy to create. Once you're satisfied with the cleanup process, it's time to restuff this little cutie. It can be a little confusing which way some of the pods go, so when I unstuff them, I like to lay them with their fronts or faces up so I remember how they go back inside. It can be a little tricky to get the stuffing back inside. I squeeze it tight to make it as small as possible so it fits in fairly easy. A little squishing might be in order to get them to look just right. Thanks so much for joining me today to teach you about my tricks of the trade when decorating these cute and cuddly little creatures. And if you need to stock up on new designs, shop our website at troublamenot.com under supplies.